Welcome to World Information HD. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of coin collecting to unveil the top 10 most valuable and rare Lincoln wheat pennies, some of which have fetched millions at auction. From wartime minting mishaps to notorious designer initials, each of these 1-cent coins holds a piece of American history and a potential treasure. Today we dive into the fascinating story of a coin that hides in plain sight yet holds a legacy far beyond its tiny size. The coin we're talking about is the United States of America 1940 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat 1-cent penny. At first glance, it might seem like an ordinary copper cent, the kind millions of Americans carried in their pockets during the early years of the 20th century. But behind its modest face lies history, artistry, scarcity, and the incredible potential for high value if you happen to own one in pristine condition. Let's take a journey back in time. The year is 1940. America is still slowly recovering from the Great Depression, jobs are starting to return, and President Franklin D. Roosevelt is guiding the nation with policies meant to stabilize and grow the economy. But across the ocean, Europe is already engulfed in the flames of World War II. Although the United States has not yet entered the war, tensions are rising, industries are shifting, and resources are being watched carefully. Every item of production in this era, even the smallest coin, has a story connected to the larger events shaping the world. The Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909, was already 3 decades into circulation by the time 1940 arrived. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the Lincoln cent was the very first American coin to feature the portrait of a real historical figure. Before 1909, U.S. coins traditionally used symbolic images, such as Lady Liberty or representations of freedom. But in honor of the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the U.S. Mint made a bold change. They placed the face of the 16th president on the nation's smallest denomination coin. This was no random decision. Abraham Lincoln was a figure that represented unity, perseverance, and integrity. At the time of its release, the public loved the design. Collectors lined up at banks to get rolls of the new pennies, and the Lincoln cent became a staple of American coinage. By 1940, the design had become so familiar that people barely gave it a second thought. Yet today, collectors and historians see the 1940 issue as a snapshot of America right before the world would change forever with the outbreak of World War II. Now, let's talk about the specific coin in focus, the 1940 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny. The absence of a mint mark indicates that it was struck at the main U.S. Mint facility in Philadelphia. Unlike the Denver Mint, which used a small d, or the San Francisco Mint, which used an s, coins from Philadelphia in this era carried no mark at all. Millions upon millions of these pennies were minted, but not all of them survived the decades in good condition. Many were lost to circulation, heavy wear, damage, or even melted down for metal content in later years. The obverse, or front side, of the coin proudly displays the portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right. Above his head are the words, "In God We Trust," a motto deeply ingrained in American culture. To his left is the word, "Liberty," symbolizing the very principles Lincoln stood for, and to his right, the date, 1940, with no mint mark underneath it. The reverse side of the coin shows 2 wheat stalks curving along the edges, framing the inscriptions, 1 cent, and United States of America. At the top are the words, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one. These wheat stalks gave the coin its popular nickname, the wheat penny. Collectors are often fascinated by wheat pennies because they are no longer made today. In 1959, the reverse design was changed to the Lincoln Memorial, and later in 2009, it changed again to mark Lincoln's 200th birthday. The wheat penny design is a direct connection to an earlier time, when even a cent felt like it carried weight in daily life. But what makes the 1940 no-mint mark penny particularly interesting is not just its design but its condition and rarity in higher grades. While millions were struck, finding one in pristine mint state condition is far more difficult. Imagine a coin that survived more than 80 years without scratches, without heavy marks, and with its original red copper luster intact. That is what serious collectors dream of. You see, not all coins are valued the same. The worth of any coin depends on a combination of factors: its rarity, its demand, and most importantly, its condition. Numismatists, or coin collectors, use a grading scale to determine condition, ranging from poor all the way up to mint state 70. For wheat pennies like the 1940 issue, coins that are circulated and worn may only fetch a few cents to a few dollars. But coins that have been preserved in flawless condition, perhaps forgotten in a roll or stored carefully for decades, can sell for staggering amounts at auction. One fascinating detail about the 1940 penny is how many varieties of color exist due to the copper composition. Copper reacts with its environment, and coins can appear in shades of red brown or red-brown. Collectors prize those that still retain a bright, fiery red luster, just as they looked the day they left the press. These red examples are especially rare, since most coins naturally toned or darkened over time. A full red 1940 penny in mint state is a treasure to behold. Another aspect that adds intrigue is the possibility of errors and varieties. During minting, mistakes sometimes occur, and these errors can make coins extremely valuable. Examples include double dies, off-center strikes, or repunched mint marks. While the 1940 Philadelphia cent does not have as many famous errors as some other years, sharp-eyed collectors still search for anomalies that set a coin apart from the rest. Even a small difference can mean a large jump in value. Think about the everyday use of this coin. In 1940, a single penny had real purchasing power. A loaf of bread might cost around 9 cents, a gallon of gas was about 18 cents, and movie tickets were roughly 25 cents. The penny was a true part of daily transactions. People used it constantly, and children treasured pennies as they saved them in jars or used them for small treats. To own a coin from that era today is like holding a time capsule from an America on the brink of entering the most significant war in modern history. Now let's fast forward to the modern collector's market. Imagine you discover a 1940 no-mint mark penny in a box of old change passed down from grandparents. At first, it might seem like a simple copper coin worth 1 cent. But with careful examination, if that coin is in immaculate condition, brilliant, uncirculated, and fully red, it could be worth far more than most people would ever believe. Auctions have proven that wheat pennies in top grades bring astonishing results. Collectors compete fiercely for the best of the best, knowing that such coins are not only rare but also historically important. They see it not just as a coin, but as a piece of art, a piece of history, and an investment. It's important to note that many 1940 pennies still survive in circulated condition, and these typically trade for modest amounts. But the true gems, the ones preserved perfectly through sheer luck or careful storage, can bring life-changing sums. This is why coin collecting continues to fascinate people. It's the thrill of the hunt, the chance that something ordinary could turn out to be extraordinary. The 1940 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny stands as a perfect example of how a small coin can hold immense value when history, condition, and rarity all align. From its creation in Philadelphia, to its circulation in the pockets of Americans living through uncertain times, to its place in modern auctions, this coin has traveled across generations. So, the next time you see a wheat penny, don't dismiss it as just an old cent. Take a closer look. Study the date, the condition, and the details. Because hidden within these small copper discs are stories of America's past, and sometimes, hidden fortunes. And now, for the question everyone has been waiting for: what is the potential worth of the 1940 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny in the highest grades, with blazing red luster and immaculate preservation? Well, one such coin has been recorded as selling for an astounding $38,477. Welcome back to World Information HD, the channel where we uncover the hidden treasures that may be sitting right under your nose. Today, we are diving into one of the most fascinating coins from American history, the 1941 Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, it may look like just another old copper coin you'd find rattling in your grandfather's desk drawer or tucked inside a forgotten jar of pennies. But don't be fooled. This penny holds secrets, stories, and in rare cases, a value so astonishing it could leave you in disbelief. The year 1941 was a turbulent time in the world. The United States was on the brink of entering World War II, with global tensions rising every single day. Families across America were preparing for an uncertain future, rationing supplies, and bracing themselves for what seemed inevitable. Yet in Denver, Colorado, inside the United States Mint facility, millions of small copper coins were being pressed, carrying the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the front and 2 wheat stalks on the back. This coin was the 1941 Lincoln wheat penny, specifically the one bearing the small D mint mark right under the date. That D stood for Denver, where the coin was minted. To many at the time, it was just a simple piece of change, worth 1 cent, no more, no less. People spent it on chewing gum, on the morning newspaper, or dropped it into a payphone to make a quick call. Nobody in 1941 could have imagined that decades later, this unassuming penny would capture the attention of coin collectors, historians, and treasure hunters all over the world. What makes the 1941 D Lincoln wheat penny so attractive today? To answer that, we need to look at a combination of history, rarity, condition, and the passion of collectors who value not only the metal but the story behind it. First, let's talk about its design. The obverse, or front, of the coin features President Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, immortalized in profile. His portrait had been designed back in 1909 by Victor David Brenner, and it was the first time a real historical figure had been placed on a regular circulating U.S. coin. For Americans, especially in the early 1940s, Lincoln wasn't just a face. They saw him as a symbol of unity, strength, and perseverance during troubled times. And in 1941, as the world edged closer to chaos, Lincoln's image was a quiet reminder of resilience. The reverse of the penny carried the classic, wheat ears, design. 2 stalks of wheat curve inward, framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. Above that, the Latin phrase, e pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one. These wheat stalks gave the coin its popular nickname, the wheat penny. The design was simple, rustic, and proudly American. It remained in circulation from 1909 until 1958, after which it was replaced with the Lincoln Memorial reverse. Now, the Denver Mint struck over 128 million of these pennies in 1941. That may sound like a huge number, and indeed, most of these coins were used up in daily life, worn down from decades of circulation. But here's where things get interesting. Not all pennies survive equally. Some were preserved in near-perfect condition, tucked away in coin rolls or stored by collectors. Others developed unique minting errors, tiny mistakes made during production that transformed them into rare treasures. And those are the pennies that make collectors' hearts race today. When it comes to coin collecting, condition is everything. A 1941 D penny found in your pocket change, worn and scratched, might only be worth a few cents to a few dollars. But the same coin in pristine, uncirculated condition can be worth hundreds, or even thousands. The grading scale, used by professional numismatists, ranges from poor to mint state. A mint state 65 or higher 1941 D penny is not just beautiful, it's scarce, and collectors are willing to pay a premium for it. The shine, the crispness of Lincoln's features, the lack of scratches or marks, these details separate a valuable coin from an ordinary one. But condition isn't the only factor. Mint errors also play a huge role in driving up the value. For example, double dies, where the coin design was struck twice in slightly different positions, create a doubling effect on the letters or numbers. A 1941 D double die penny can be incredibly sought after. Off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, or die cracks also make a coin stand out from the millions of others minted that year. Collectors love these anomalies because they are living proof of the minting process and its occasional flaws. Beyond the technical aspects, the 1941 D Lincoln wheat penny carries historical weight. Think about it. This coin circulated during a pivotal moment in American history. It passed through the hands of ordinary citizens, perhaps even soldiers, workers, and families who were saving every cent they could. Some of these very pennies might have been dropped into donation boxes, helping support the war effort once the United States entered World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor in December of that year. To hold a 1941 penny today is to hold a small artifact from the past, a reminder of a nation standing on the edge of history. Coin collectors, or numismatists as they are formally known, often say that the value of a coin is part monetary, part emotional. Yes, there is the excitement of knowing a penny can be worth thousands, but there is also the feeling of connection, to history, to craftsmanship, and to the countless unknown people who may have used that coin in everyday life. The 1941 D penny is a symbol of resilience, not just because of Lincoln's face, but because of the time it represents. Over the decades, the reputation of the 1941 D penny has grown steadily. Collectors scour coin shows, estate sales, and even old piggy banks in hopes of finding one in exceptional condition. Some are lucky enough to stumble upon them by accident. Maybe a forgotten coin jar in a basement, maybe an old collection passed down from a relative. Others spend years hunting for just the right one, adding it proudly to their albums as part of the Lincoln Wheat series. But here's the most incredible part. While most 1941 D pennies are common and affordable, the rarest and most pristine examples have sold for jaw-dropping sums at auctions. The record prices achieved by these coins prove that even the smallest piece of copper can carry immense value if preserved well enough. It's a reminder to all of us to check our change carefully, because sometimes treasure hides in plain sight. Think about it. How many times have you handled a penny without giving it a second thought? How many coins have slipped through your fingers, overlooked, undervalued? Every now and then, a simple cent turns out to be worth a fortune, and the 1941 D Lincoln Wheat penny is a perfect example of that. So the next time you come across an old jar of coins, or when you're handed change at a store, take a closer look. You never know what stories those coins could tell. And you never know if one of them might just be that rare penny you've heard about. After all, the 1941 D Wheat penny is more than just copper, it's history, rarity, and mystery rolled into one. And in one extraordinary case, a 1941 D Lincoln Wheat penny reached the staggering value of $35,597. The story of the United States 1-cent coin is one that stretches far beyond just copper and engraving. It's a piece of history that most of us carry in our pockets without even realizing the journey these tiny coins have taken. Among all the pennies ever struck by the U.S. Mint, one particular year continues to stand out in the eyes of collectors, historians, and everyday treasure hunters alike. That year is 1944, and the coin is the 1944 D Lincoln Wheat penny. Now, at first glance, this small copper coin may seem ordinary. You might even think of it as just another wheat penny that came out of circulation decades ago. But once you start uncovering the details, the story becomes fascinating, layered with history, mystery, and surprising value. By the end of this journey, you may look at the pennies in your change jar with a whole new sense of excitement. Let's step back to the early 1940s. The world was in the middle of World War II, a global conflict that reshaped not just nations but also the way economies functioned. Every material was precious. Copper, which had been traditionally used for minting pennies, was urgently needed for the war effort. The United States government, responding to this need, experimented with alternatives in 1943, resulting in the famous steel cents. These zinc-coated steel coins are instantly recognizable today because of their silver appearance, which set them apart from the traditional copper pennies Americans were used to. But in 1944, as the war effort evolved, the U.S. Mint shifted production back to copper for the 1-cent coin. Yet even then, they didn't use freshly mined copper. Instead, the Mint relied heavily on recycled metal, much of it coming from spent shell casings collected from military training grounds and battlefields. This meant that the 1944 pennies weren't just coins. They were, in a way, forged from the remnants of war. Holding one of these pennies is like holding a piece of that era, a tiny symbol of resilience, resourcefulness, and history. When we zoom in on the Denver Mint, we find the D Mint mark stamped just below the date on the obverse side of the coin. The 1944 D Wheat penny carries with it the story of the Denver Mint's production during a time when efficiency was paramount. Millions upon millions of these coins were struck, and while that might make you think they are all common, the truth is far more interesting. For collectors, the magic lies in the details. Every coin tells its own story. While the majority of 1944 D pennies may look similar at first glance, not all of them are created equal. The condition of the coin, its strike quality, its rarity and pristine grades, and even unique minting errors can transform what looks like a simple cent into something worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars. Let's start with the design itself. On the obverse side, we see Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, which first appeared in 1909 to mark the centennial of Lincoln's birth. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person rather than an allegorical figure. Around the edges are the words, "In God We Trust." At the top, Liberty, to the left, and the date, 1944. To the right, just above that distinctive D mint marked out on the reverse, the wheat penny displays two wheat stalks hugging the words 1 cent and United States of America. Above them is the familiar motto, E pluribus unum. This reverse design, simple yet dignified, earned the coin its popular name, the wheat penny. So, what makes the 1944 D wheat penny particularly appealing to collectors? First, it represents a return to copper after the one-year experiment with steel in 1943. This creates a natural sense of curiosity. People want to collect both, the steel cent and its copper successor, to tell the complete wartime coinage story. But more importantly, not all 1944 D pennies are the same. Some exhibit rare variations that send collectors into bidding wars. For instance, there are instances of 1944 pennies being accidentally struck on leftover steel planchets from 1943. These rare transitional errors are among the most coveted in all of U.S. coinage. Imagine holding a coin that by all rights shouldn't exist, a 1944 penny with the silvery appearance of steel. These can fetch extraordinary sums, and they are like hidden treasures waiting to be discovered. Even without such dramatic errors, condition plays a massive role in determining value. The grading scale, which ranges from poor to mint state, helps collectors and investors assess how much a coin might be worth. A 1944 D wheat penny in heavily circulated condition might only be worth a few cents or perhaps $1. But take that same coin in uncirculated condition, with sharp details, brilliant luster, and no signs of wear, and the value skyrockets. That's where the fascination truly begins. You could have two coins side by side, both 1944 D wheat pennies, yet one might be worth pocket change, while the other could be worth thousands. The difference lies in preservation, in the tiny scratches, in the way the light dances across its copper surface. Collectors especially prize coins that achieve a grade of mint state 65 or higher. These coins are essentially time capsules, preserved for decades as though they were struck yesterday. It is in this rarefied category that the 1944 D penny reveals its true potential. When one of these coins appears at auction, the competition is fierce. Bidders know they aren't just buying a penny, they are buying a pristine piece of history, a link to a bygone era when America was at war, and even the smallest coin had a story to tell. But there's another layer of intrigue, the human fascination with finding treasures in everyday life. Stories abound of people discovering rare wheat pennies in old jars, forgotten collections, or even loose change. The idea that an ordinary-looking coin could secretly hold immense value is what makes coin collecting so captivating. It's not just about rarity, it's about possibility. Imagine this: you're sorting through an old box of coins inherited from a grandparent, and you come across a shiny 1944 D wheat penny. At first, you think it's just another cent. But upon closer inspection, you realize it's in near-perfect condition, untouched by time. Suddenly, you're holding something far more valuable than you could have ever expected. That moment of discovery, that spark of excitement, is why people fall in love with coins like the 1944 D penny. Beyond collectors, these coins also capture the attention of historians and everyday people interested in the tangible connections to the past. The fact that these pennies were minted using recycled wartime shell casings ties them directly to the global events of the 1940s. They aren't just coins, they're artifacts, whispers from the past that remind us of sacrifice, innovation, and resilience. So, what does all this mean for the value of the 1944 D wheat penny today? The market is constantly evolving, but one thing is clear: high-grade examples continue to command significant prices. It's not unusual for such coins to cross into the five-figure range at auctions, especially when they are graded by reputable services and retain their brilliant red luster. When you combine history, rarity, condition, and the sheer romance of collecting, you end up with a coin that transcends its 1 cent face value. The 1944 DeWitt penny is not just a coin, it's a story, an investment, a piece of living history, and in some cases, a life-changing discovery. And now comes the part that will make you look twice at your coin collection. Among the most valuable examples of the 1944 D. Lincoln wheat penny ever sold, one fetched an incredible $27,663. In the vast history of American coinage, few coins capture the fascination of collectors quite like the humble Lincoln wheat cent. Small in size, yet monumental in its role within everyday life, this coin has crossed the palms of millions, fueling commerce, marking memories, and sometimes, just sometimes, becoming an artifact of incredible value. Today, we dive deep into one of the fascinating pieces from this storied series, the 1950 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, this penny might appear to be just another small copper coin from the mid-20th century, easily overlooked in change or lost in the folds of a drawer. But beneath its simple face lies a story of history, design, production quirks, collector intrigue, and a value far beyond its tiny denomination. By the time we're finished, you'll never look at the Lincoln cent the same way again. Let's step back to the origins. The Lincoln cent first appeared in 1909, the centennial year of President Abraham Lincoln's birth. This was a turning point in U.S. coinage history, because for the first time ever, the face of an American president was placed on a circulating coin. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the coin bore Lincoln's portrait on the obverse, while the reverse showcased two simple wheat stalks curving around the denomination and motto. Those wheat ears would soon give the coin its beloved nickname, the wheat penny. By 1950, the Lincoln wheat cent had already cemented itself as one of the most iconic coins in circulation. The world was emerging from the shadow of World War II, the American economy was booming, and coins like the penny were in heavy daily use. Every pocket jingled with change, and the Lincoln cent was the workhorse of small transactions. To the average citizen in 1950, this coin wasn't rare or special. It was just part of life, buying a soda, a newspaper, or a handful of candy. Yet decades later, the survival of high-quality examples of this year would make collectors sit up and take notice. The specific focus of our story today is the 1950 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny. Now, when we say, no-mint mark, that doesn't mean an error or something unusual. It simply means that the coin was minted in Philadelphia. During this era, Philadelphia coins generally did not carry a mint mark. So, if you examine a penny from 1950 and see no small d or s beneath the date, you're looking at the Philadelphia issue. The Philadelphia Mint struck a massive number of these coins, over 272 million pieces in total. With such a large mintage, it might seem like these coins would be common and easily found in high grades today. But here's where the nuance comes in. While many were produced, most circulated heavily. These pennies were used, worn down, passed from hand to hand, and eventually retired from circulation. Over time, the vast majority of them lost the sharp details, red luster, and pristine surfaces that collectors prized. So, what makes the 1950 no-mint mark penny truly interesting isn't just its mintage, but its survival quality. In worn condition, you might still find one today in an old jar or tucked away in an attic. But in higher grades, especially with full original red coloration, these coins are scarce and highly desirable. Collectors of Lincoln wheat cents are passionate, and completing a set in top condition requires hunting down coins like this one. Let's talk about the design details. On the obverse, you'll find Abraham Lincoln, his profile facing right, with the words, "In God We Trust," arched above his head. To his left is the word, "Liberty," and to his right, the date 1950, with no mint mark beneath it. Over time, collectors and graders examined this side for sharpness in Lincoln's hair, jawline, and coat. Strong details here often separate an ordinary coin from a standout specimen. On the reverse, those iconic wheat stalks frame the words, 1 cent, in bold lettering, with United States of America directly beneath. Above it all sits the Latin motto, E pluribus unum. Collectors often look closely at the wheat lines. When they're fully visible, crisp, and unworn, the coin's grade rises significantly. And when combined with rich original red luster, the coin glows with the beauty it had when it first left the mint in 1950. Beyond its design and mintage, the 1950 wheat penny also has an aura of nostalgia. It belongs to an era when pennies still had real purchasing power. In 1950, a penny could buy you a piece of bubble gum, and a handful of them might get you a candy bar. A roll of 50 pennies, just 50 cents, was enough for a modest outing. For many older collectors today, this coin recalls memories of childhood, allowance money, or afternoons spent sifting through pocket change. That sense of connection fuels the emotional and monetary value of the coin. As with many wheat cents, condition is king. In circulated grades, those coins that spent years in everyday commerce, the 1950 no-mint mark penny is generally affordable, worth only a modest premium above face value. But once you move into higher uncirculated grades, especially those certified by professional grading services, values rise steeply. Collectors compete fiercely for coins with brilliant red color, minimal spots, and sharp details. These are the treasures that stand out at auctions and in collections. There are also interesting varieties and errors to consider. While the 1950 Philadelphia cent isn't known for dramatic doubled dies like some earlier years, careful searchers still enjoy looking for minor errors, things like off-center strikes, die cracks, or repunched dates. Such errors, while not always common, can add an extra layer of uniqueness and value to an otherwise ordinary penny. Another fascinating angle is how the 1950 no-mint mark penny fits into the broader Lincoln Wheat series. Collectors often build what's known as a wheat cent set, spanning 1909 to 1958. Within such a set, some dates are scarce and expensive, like the 1909 SVDB or the 1914D, while others are more common. The 1950 penny falls somewhere in between. It's not a key date, but it's not irrelevant either. In top condition, it becomes a coin that can elevate the quality of a collection. The allure of coins like this also lies in the possibility of discovery. Imagine rummaging through an old family coin jar, sorting through change, and suddenly spotting the date 1950 on a wheat penny with no mint mark. At first, it might look ordinary, but what if it's in excellent condition? What if, against all odds, it still gleams with its original luster? That small coin could be worth far more than you ever imagined. That thrill of discovery keeps collectors searching, decade after decade. Now let's bring in a little perspective. Consider that the penny itself, with a face value of 1 cent, was designed for the most basic of transactions. Yet here we are, more than 70 years later, talking about it as a collectible item that can command prices far beyond its denomination. This transformation from humble coin to sought-after treasure speaks to the magic of numismatics. It's not just about money, it's about history, survival, and the human desire to preserve and cherish objects that connect us to the past. And what about value? That's the burning question for many. While a circulated 1950 no-mint mark penny might be just a curiosity worth only a few cents, the story changes dramatically in uncirculated condition. Coins that have survived untouched, with radiant red color and sharp details, are the gems that set collectors' hearts racing. When certified and placed at the top of the grading scale, these coins can reach truly impressive prices at auction. Think about the journey of such a coin. Struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1950, tucked into a bank roll, perhaps placed in a collection by a sharp-eyed saver, and carefully preserved through decades of change, it emerges today as a shining piece of history, commanding value not just for its rarity, but for the sheer improbability of its survival in such pristine condition. So while millions of 1950 pennies circulated and eventually wore down, only a small fraction survived in superb state. And those survivors? They are the coins that elevate this date from ordinary to extraordinary. They remind us that even among the most common objects, hidden treasures can exist. Now, as we close this deep exploration of the 1950 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat penny, it's time to reveal what the finest examples of this coin can truly be worth. Hold on to your seat, because this humble 1-cent piece, in top condition, has achieved a value of $22,999. The story of the American penny is far greater than just a small copper coin. It is a story of a nation's history, its changing economy, and the extraordinary details that make even the smallest piece of currency a collector's treasure. Among these coins, there exists one that continues to capture the attention of numismatists, coin hunters, and history lovers alike. The 1955 D-Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent wheat penny. At first glance, this coin might look like just another piece of pocket change, slightly aged, with the warm reddish-brown tone of copper that has been carried in hands and purses for years. But behind its humble appearance lies a fascinating story, one that stretches from the bustling Denver Mint in the mid-1950s to the display cases and auction blocks of today, where its worth has transformed far beyond its face value. To understand why the 1955 D-Wheat penny is so captivating, we need to step back into the world of America in the year 1955. Dwight D. Eisenhower was president, Elvis Presley was just beginning to change the sound of music, and the nation was standing at the threshold of a cultural revolution. In this environment, coins were a silent witness to history, passing from hand to hand in grocery stores, gas stations, and movie theaters. And within this everyday circulation, the Lincoln wheat cent remained one of the most iconic pieces of American currency. The wheat penny had been introduced decades earlier, in 1909, to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the coin was the first U.S. currency to feature a real person's portrait. The decision to honor Lincoln was no accident. He was revered as the great emancipator, a figure of unity and strength. On the obverse of the coin, Brenner sculpted a dignified bust of Lincoln, gazing forward with solemn wisdom. On the reverse, 2 wheat stalks framed the words, 1 cent, symbolizing America's agricultural roots. For nearly half a century, this design defined the Lincoln cent, until the reverse was changed in 1959 to feature the Lincoln Memorial. The year 1955 was one of transition for the wheat penny. The Denver Mint, known for its distinctive D-Mint mark placed just below the date, was producing millions of pennies to fuel a growing post-war economy. These coins were meant to be ordinary, common, and abundant. But as with all things collectible, it is often the smallest details and imperfections that give rise to extraordinary value. Unlike the famous 1955 double-die cent produced at the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver-struck version is not known for dramatic minting errors. Instead, its rarity and desirability come from factors of condition, survival, and the continuing fascination with mid-century American coinage. To hold a 1955 D-Wheat penny in pristine condition is to hold a perfect piece of preserved history, a coin that somehow escaped decades of wear and circulation to remain as crisp as the day it was struck. Collectors often measure coins by their grade. A 1955 D-penny in circulated condition, with the typical wear and tear, might only be worth a small premium over face value. But when preserved in mint state, with sharp details on Lincoln's face, luster gleaming from its copper surface, and no distracting blemishes, the story changes dramatically. The Denver Mint produced over 500 million Lincoln cents in 1955, but the passage of time has reduced the number of high-grade survivors to a fraction. Each one of these survivors has become a coveted relic. Now imagine the journey of such a coin. Perhaps it never entered circulation at all, set aside by a careful hand who recognized its beauty. Perhaps it was tucked away in a bankroll, hidden in a dresser drawer, or passed down through a family who appreciated its significance. For decades it slept untouched, while others of its kind were spent, lost, or worn smooth in commerce. When that coin finally emerges into the world of collectors, it does so like a time capsule, carrying with it the craftsmanship and spirit of 1955. Beyond its history, the 1955 D-penny also carries a sense of nostalgia. It speaks of an era when a penny still had meaningful buying power. Children of the 1950s could walk into a candy shop and trade a single cent for a sweet treat. The same coin could pay for a gumball, a toy from a vending machine, or a newspaper. Today, It is hard to imagine such value in a penny, but back then, these small copper discs connected families and communities in countless ways. To collectors, this nostalgia adds yet another layer of emotional worth. Numismatics, the study and collection of coins, thrives on rarity, beauty, and story. The 1955 Dewey penny checks all these boxes. It is a coin born from the rich tradition of the Lincoln cent, carrying the final years of the wheat design, and produced in a decade that has become legendary in American culture. Its presence in coin albums and auction catalogs continues to spark interest, not just from seasoned collectors, but from everyday people who stumble across an old jar of pennies and dream of hidden treasure. Over the years, stories have surfaced of families finding wheat pennies in old change jars or tucked into cigar boxes in attics. Some of these stories have happy endings, with valuable coins discovered among ordinary cents. Others are tales of near misses, where someone once had a valuable coin in hand but spent it unknowingly decades ago. The 1955 D penny often features in these stories, as people check their finds against collectors' guides, hoping to strike gold with copper. Another fascinating aspect of the 1955 Dewey penny is how it highlights the Denver Mint's role in American coinage. While Philadelphia is the oldest and most famous mint, the Denver facility has a legacy of its own. Opened in 1906, the Denver Mint quickly became a powerhouse of coin production, and its D mark became a symbol of Western industriousness. For collectors, that single letter beneath the date is more than just an indicator of origin, it is a badge of identity, linking the coin to a specific time and place in the nation's story. In the modern age, where digital transactions dominate, and coins are less frequently used, the allure of such a penny grows even stronger. Younger generations often marvel that coins like the 1955 D even exist, given the rapid pace of change in currency and payment systems. Yet these pennies remind us of the tangible, tactile side of money, the weight of copper in the hand, the engraved face of a beloved president, the sense of permanence in an object that has survived decades. As with all collectibles, value is ultimately determined by the market, what someone is willing to pay for a piece of history. The 1955 D Lincoln Wheat penny, especially in high mint state condition, has proven time and again that it commands attention and respect in the numismatic world. Auction houses list it prominently, price guides document its variations, and collectors eagerly seek it to complete their sets. Its worth is not just monetary, but cultural and historical, reminding us that sometimes the smallest things hold the greatest significance. So, the next time you come across an old penny, take a moment to look closely. Is it from the wheat cent era? Does it carry the Denver D mint mark? Could it be a survivor from 1955, waiting to tell its story once more? The thrill of coin collecting lies in these discoveries, the idea that history can rest quietly in the palm of your hand, and when it comes to this particular coin, the story culminates in its remarkable value. For while it was once simply a 1-cent piece of copper, struck in vast numbers for everyday use, today a well-preserved 1955 D mint mark Lincoln Wheat penny can reach an astounding price of $23,477. The story of American coinage is far more fascinating than most people realize. Every penny, every dime, and every quarter that passes through our hands carries a piece of history with it. For many, coins are just everyday objects, useful for transactions and often forgotten at the bottom of pockets or left in dusty jars at home. But for those who pay attention, these tiny metallic tokens can tell stories of entire eras, of changing economies, of war and peace, of presidents and people, of artistry and technology. Today, we step back into the mid-20th century to uncover the story of the 1956 no mint mark Lincoln Wheat penny, a coin that may look small and ordinary, yet holds an extraordinary place in the eyes of collectors and historians alike. To understand the importance of the 1956 penny, we first need to look at the time in which it was made. The United States in 1956 was living through the heart of the post-war boom. Families were moving to new suburbs, televisions were becoming a household staple, and rock and roll was beginning to reshape culture. Eisenhower was president, highways were expanding across the nation, and America was stepping confidently into the modern age. But amidst these large changes, coins still played an essential role in daily life. Before debit cards, before smartphones, and long before digital transactions, coins were the pulse of commerce. And pennies, perhaps the smallest unit, were everywhere. The Lincoln wheat penny itself had been around since 1909. When it was introduced, it was revolutionary. For the first time, the face of a real American president, Abraham Lincoln, was placed on a coin for regular circulation. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the coin featured Lincoln's profile on the front and two simple wheat stalks framing the words, 1 cent, on the reverse. Those wheat stalks gave the penny its popular nickname, the wheat penny. For decades, this design circulated in the hands of millions of Americans, becoming a part of everyday transactions while also subtly teaching a lesson of history and leadership by honoring Lincoln. By 1956, the wheat design was already nearing the end of its era, though most Americans didn't know it at the time. Within just a few years, in 1959, the coin's reverse would change to the Lincoln Memorial design, commemorating the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. So the 1956 no-mint mark penny belongs to the final chapters of the wheat penny's long story, making it even more interesting for those who collect coins today. When we talk about the no-mint mark penny of 1956, we are referring to the coin struck at the main United States Mint in Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Mint traditionally did not place a mint mark on its coins, unlike the Denver Mint, which used the letter D, or the San Francisco Mint, which used the letter S. So when you look at a 1956 penny and you don't see any small letter under the date, that tells you it was produced in Philadelphia. Millions of these coins were made, over 420 million, to be exact. At first glance, that may seem to make them ordinary, even common. But rarity is only one part of what makes a coin valuable. Condition, errors, historical significance, and collector demand all play their role. The 1956 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a copper coin, made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, a traditional composition that was used for decades. It weighs 3.11 grams and measures 19 millimeters in diameter. When freshly struck, these coins had a warm reddish luster, the shine of new copper, though over time, many toned to a darker brown as they circulated in pockets, cash registers, and jars. To hold a bright, uncirculated example today is to glimpse a piece of history exactly as it looked when it was brand new, before it passed through countless hands. Collectors are particularly interested in coins that survive in high grades, meaning those that never saw much circulation and still look close to the way they did when they left the mint. The difference between a penny found in your grandfather's drawer and one carefully preserved since 1956 can be dramatic in terms of value. A circulated penny might only be worth its face value, but an uncirculated, mint-state coin with blazing luster can bring in serious interest at auctions. The higher the grade, the more dramatic the jump in value. Another factor that excites collectors are varieties and errors. Minting millions of coins is not a flawless process, and sometimes mistakes slip through. Double dies, where the design looks double due to a misalignment during striking, are especially sought after. Off-center strikes, die cracks, and repunched mint marks can also create unique pieces that collectors prize. While the 1956 no-mint mark penny does not have as many famous error varieties as some other dates, there are known double die examples and minor varieties that specialists hunt for. For coin collectors, the appeal of the 1956 no-mint mark wheat penny goes beyond its individual value. It represents the end of an era, the final stretch of the wheat cent design before America moved on to something new. Holding one is like holding the last chapter of a familiar storybook. The wheat stalks on the reverse, simple and elegant, are a reminder of a time when the nation still had a strong connection to agriculture, when wheat was a symbol of prosperity and sustenance for millions of American families. Imagine, for a moment, the journey one of these pennies might have taken. Freshly minted in 1956, gleaming and perfect, it might have been given to a child as change for a piece of candy, or slipped into the pocket of a worker buying his morning coffee. It might have been tossed into a wishing fountain, or carefully saved in a coin jar at home. Over time, it may have passed through gas stations, diners, barbershops, and movie theaters. Perhaps it survived the 1960s and 70s tucked away in a desk, forgotten until discovered by a new generation. Now, decades later, collectors look at that same coin and see not just a cent, but a window into the past. The beauty of coin collecting is that it brings history alive in ways that books cannot. A coin is a tangible artifact, something real that you can hold in your hand. And yet, it is also more than just metal. It carries the stories of the people who used it, the time it was struck, and the nation that created it. The 1956 penny is not rare in the sense that only a few exist, but it is rare in the sense that only a small fraction survive today in pristine condition. That combination of availability and desirability makes it an accessible coin for new collectors, while also holding special appeal for those who chase the finest examples. Many collectors build entire sets of Lincoln wheat pennies, aiming to have one from every year and every mint. In such collections, the 1956 no-mint mark is an essential piece, and depending on its condition, it can either be an easy filler coin or one of the prized highlights. What sets apart the valuable ones from the common ones is often just the state of preservation. A tiny difference in grade can mean a massive difference in value. So, the next time you come across an old penny, whether it's lying in a drawer, hiding under couch cushions, or sitting quietly in a coin jar, don't dismiss it too quickly. Look at the date. Check for mint marks. Pay attention to the condition. You never know what story that small piece of copper is waiting to tell you. Because sometimes, what looks like an ordinary penny can turn out to be a hidden treasure. And now, we arrive at the most exciting part for many viewers: the potential value. While the majority of 1956 no-mint mark wheat pennies are worth only a few cents to a few dollars depending on condition, some extraordinary examples have crossed the auction block for significant sums. In pristine, high-grade condition, with sharp details and blazing luster, a single 1956 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny has been valued as high as $49,266.